No, I think you can continue it. I mean, you could do any number of things, really. Yeah.
I really don't like it incomplete.
Well, I think the other question would be, and I think that what the applicant would be arguing is that they have met the requirements of the code. And so if it is true that they've met the requirements of the code, then you wouldn't have any choice but to approve, because what would be your grounds for denial? My view is, I'm not sure that they've met the requirements of the code. I would like an opportunity to discuss it internally with staff so that we can come back and pretty confidently say, yes, what they're proposing does meet code.
Okay.
We haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about it yet, so.
Right. So, yeah, so if you wanted to continue it, you can continue it conditionally, or you can just continue it. I mean, of course, you could deny it, you know, or I guess approve it if that's.
And I will say, you know, really, this is Royce's realm. It's really a discussion of the planning code. There isn't an engineering thing here. The numbers that are provided on the plat mathematically work.
And Royce, just so I'm clear, Jennifer's now a voting member, took down spot, so do I need to put that on the record, Mr. First?
Yeah, let's do that.
And then, so Matt will be an alternate, is he our only alternate right now, or do we?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Also speak up, we're not using a good mic. I think it must have gone to a meeting yesterday and not been returned to my office.
Speak up, okay.
Yeah, have the mic closer to you.
Have your mics close and
Yeah.
speak into the
Just
mic.
give me like a little signal if we're not.
She'll trust something.
Something, yeah, just smack me, that works.
That's what they taught you when you're singing performance-wise, you gotta love the mic, swallow it.
Yeah, I don't sing, so never got that training. But I am used to making records, so it's all good.
So is there Stephen? Huh?
His bond, really concerned with his bond,
What bond?
his, for his landscaping. And it needs to be done in hopefully tomorrow. Is he tied? And I don't know. I thought he was.
Yeah, so that amount that you had for the tie house on the review comments, that amount, we haven't written a check for that.
Okay.
That is, right, because if that was the amount.
Yeah, so did we do a cash bond agreement?
Well, I don't know, let's see, they were just looking for the amount, so.
I gave him an email with the amount, so.
He's gonna come back, he wants to
I
start with
guess
that
he
one.
came in and was like,
I'll
he
show you.
was gonna
I'll show
go,
you the change.
he was, I guess he didn't see. the
We'll
email.
print it off, so that Linda will have it in the morning.
Linda, did you guys get a cash bond agreement set up for? No?
I just don't wanna have to say he's
Okay.
temporary absent, and kind of back, and
Yeah.
he doesn't get back before we vote, and then that can go. And it's just a piece of- He's coming?
Yeah.
Like within 5 minutes, or? Yeah.
Well, you don't have your gavel, just knock.
What's that?
I said you don't have your gavel, just knock on
Oh, yeah, no.
Well, I guess we'll give you the exception.
All right, we'd like to welcome everybody out to the Pleasant Grove Planning Commission meeting for January 14, 2016. We're going to go ahead and get started now with some of the commission business. We will first have a pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Armstrong, and then opening remarks by Commissioner Steele.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet together tonight on the business of the city and the residents. We are grateful for the opportunity to live in this city and to work together to make it a better place. We ask that you bless us, that we might good judgments and to make the correct findings for our city. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. So I will state for the record, the commissioners that are present, we have Commissioner Still, Commissioner Coons, Commissioner Armstrong, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Cardin, Commissioner Richards, and Commissioner Baptista, who is now a voting member of the commission. Commissioner Neidiger is here and will be an alternate tonight. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? I hear a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coons, second by Commissioner Still. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes. Staff reports. Do I hear a motion on the staff reports?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the staff reports.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Richards, second by Commissioner Baptista. All in favor? Okay. Are there any declarations of conflicts or abstentions from any commission members relating to these three items? All right. I think we will proceed then with item number 1, which is an establishment of use, establishment of use that's not specified in the code. So the Planning Commission is going to discussion to consider allowing a company called Gluten Free Haven to produce grain products in the MD Manufacturing Distribution Zone under use number 2140, which is not currently specified as a permitted or conditional use in the MD zone. Turn the time over to Royce.
Okay. Since we are hang on 1 second.
I'll do my finding every day.
Okay. So, the code allows for us to be able to allow a use in a zone that's where the use is not permitted currently. So the request is to allow, what the use is now, stop right up here. Well, they want to do gluten-free food production or gluten-free grain production, so it's like a grain production use. Actually, I think that is the use number. So what the Planning Commission has the ability to do is to grant that on a case-by-case basis, provided it meets certain criteria, which we'll go over. But this also triggers a public hearing for the next meeting on whether or not we should just include this into the code for this zone. So the MD zone is located in a couple different parts throughout the city. So we're over here, so kind of south of and west of State Street, and then there's also a section up here. This is owned by the city currently, so not really used for manufacturing uses right now. But the applicant's looking at putting in a company, as was mentioned, Gluten Free Haven. We're going to be producing these grain products in the MD zone. So what the code requires is, actually back up a little bit. The current code allows for certain uses that are very similar. So these are food production uses, and also we have a pharmaceutical, which is similar to a food production use. These are permitted. And then conditional uses, we have meat, dairy, canning of fruits and vegetables, and so on. So these are all food production uses. This is a manufacturing zone, and that's what the intent of the applicant is to bring in manufacturing use.
Hey,
So-
Royce, I'm sorry, can you clarify that? You said these were conditional, or these are the permitted?
Those
And
are- sorry.
I just want to make sure I didn't put those.
I mistyped that. I should say conditional uses there instead of permitted. So, and this will probably be more for the public hearing in the next meeting, talking about what is permitted and what is conditional, and we'll of course get into that as we go along. But just to clarify that, this zone does have uses that are similar to what's being proposed here, and a lot of times, because there are so many uses that are possible, somebody can come into the city and say, I'd like to do this use, and it may not be included in the code. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was not included intentionally, because we don't want that used. It just may mean that nobody's ever requested it before, so which I feel like is the case here. So there are 6 criteria that we have to determine that the use meets in order to allow it. If it doesn't meet these criteria, all of them, then the planning commission may not allow it. But if it does meet the criteria, planning commission is not bound to allow it. So you don't have to allow it if you don't want to, basically. You don't have to have a good reason for not allowing it. But again, we want to go through these criteria. So that's what I would recommend as part of the discussion for the planning commission, is to just go by these point by point. After the applicants had a chance to talk about it, and I'll be available to answer questions as well as the applicant to help clarify these. So it's the opinion of staff that after reviewing these and reviewing the types of uses that are allowed there, the intent of the general plan for that area is an industrial area. We don't see any problem with allowing this use and would recommend approval. And so, yeah, so I would just encourage, like I said, going through it one by one here, and we'll be available to answer questions. So, are there any questions at this time?
I have a couple questions. Sure. So this involves grains, right? So is it monitored by the, I assume it's monitored by the health department or the FDA or I don't know
I would
what?
assume so.
Department of Ag, State Department of Agriculture.
Okay. So your equipment and your policies and procedures all gotta meet those particular criteria, you know, in that sense. So I guess we rely on those agencies to determine if it meets the standards.
Right. And I mean, what we're trying to determine here isn't necessarily like, does this particular use meet those standards? We're saying, according to our general plan, which this is.
Well, it's part of your criteria though. You got it in there.
Right, I guess like we're.
Smoke, noise, dust.
Right. So I feel like if we talk to the applicant, we'll be able to address what's up. I don't have personally a whole lot of.
Maybe I'll save my questions for the
Yeah.
applicant. Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't think so. Thanks, Rose. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
You can come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Gil Bowles. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Gluten Free Heaven. And we are located at 274 South, 700 West. That's in those small warehouse office structures there just across the street over here. And to your question, Commissioner Richards, we are held responsible by the Department of Agriculture and the State Department of Agriculture, and we have passed that. To address one of those other questions also, the building has been modified so that we have a clean room within the warehouse, approved again by the Department of Agriculture. So we've got our triple sinks, and it's all contained there. We basically package, we have a whole line of gluten-free baking mixes. These are just a few of them. Cakes and cookies and brownies and breads, but it's all dry pack. And we are in a number of stores right now, and we are getting in a number of other stores. We are actually extended up into Idaho and Wyoming at this time, with plans for further expansion. So it's all dry good packing. We have our own operation. What we do is we have a third party bulk mix the product for us that is Utah Department of Ag approved. And then we package it into these smaller packages, and then case them up and send them out to the stores.
So they get delivered to your location from that other
Yes,
company?
that, or we go up and pick it up.
Okay.
It's up in Salt Lake, but, yeah.
So can I just clarify one thing?
Sure.
So you're currently manufacturing these
right now, or you're receiving the product essentially from a third party and then
Yes.
packaging it?
Yes.
So your purpose is to now manufacture?
Well, no, the purpose is to continue to bag it.
Just to continue?
Yes.
Okay,
just
where are you
continue
currently,
operations.
packaging it?
Let me clarify this. We thought that we had already gotten this taken care of, and so we are doing this right now there. But for clarification, this type of business is already being done there in that area by Grove Creek. We actually looked at Grove Creek, they're in the same complex. We actually looked at them for doing this packaging for us, and then we decided to do it on our own.
Okay.
So, I'm being totally honest here, we're trying to backtrack, and
We
we didn't realize
appreciate
this was a
your honesty.
problem.
I think what would be beneficial for the commission is the fact that these criteria must be met. If you could go through each one of
Sure.
those for us
Okay.
and tell us why, in your opinion, you think that you meet the criteria.
Okay, love to. The establishment of the use will be in accordance with the purposes of the district in which that use is proposed, its manufacturing area. Other businesses are doing similar type production there in the area, so I think that's not a problem. Number two, the use will be an appropriate addition to the zone because it has the same basic characteristics as the other uses permitted in the district. Manufacturing, it's already being done. The use will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. We aren't dealing with any hazardous material or anything like that. And it is all self-contained. And again, it is approved by the Department of Agriculture. The use shall not adversely affect the character of that district in which it is proposed to be established. You don't even know we're there, honestly. So, it's definitely not going to affect the character of that district. The use will not create more traffic, odor, dust, dirt, smoke, noise, vibration, illumination, glare, unsightliness, or any other objectionable influence than the amount normally created by any of the uses listed as permitted uses in that district. Within the clean room, there is a little bit of dust that is generated by the packaging process that is self-contained in the clean room. We clean up after all production runs. There's no issues, so.
Can I ask a follow-up question
Sure.
to that? Do you anticipate having to build any more infrastructure, any other buildings, or increase the size of any?
Hopefully. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
we want to grow this thing, so yeah, hopefully we will. But that would, we would have to do that again in accordance with the Department of Agriculture, like what we did this time. And of course with city approval, and now that we know about that, and go through all those proper channels. But hopefully we will be doing that, so we'll see.
Okay.
And then number 6, the use will not create any great hazard of fire or explosion than the hazard normally created by any of the uses listed as permitted uses in that district. Yeah. Again, minimal dust, very minimal dust, and there is no any other hazardous materials or anything else used.
Okay. Thank you for going through those. Any questions for the applicant, the commission? No? Okay, I think that's what we need from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and open it up now at this time for any public comment. Anybody from public like to comment on this item? No? Okay, we'll close that portion of it and we'll bring it back up here to the commission. Any thoughts or
Seems like an appropriate use for the area.
anybody feel that the 6 criteria are not met based on what was presented?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the planning commission approve the request of Gil Bowles for the establishment of use not specified allowing production of grain products under use number 2140 in the MD Manufacturing Distribution Zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report as modified by the conditions below. All city code, business license, fire, and building code requirements applying to the requested use are met.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Richards and a second by Commissioner Baptista. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, looks like it passes.
Great. Thank you very much, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Now move to item number 2, which is a public hearing regarding preliminary subdivision at 560 South Locust Avenue, to consider a request by Jason Roundy for a 6-lot subdivision called Roundy Auto Plat A, consisting of approximately 2.39 acres on property located at approximately 560 South Locust Avenue in the R18 Single Family Residential Zone. Joyce?
So, this is, it's kind of the second iteration of a similar plot that we saw last year. This includes more area. So here's the property. This is taken in actually 2 long, deep properties here. So originally, the applicant had applied for subdivision on this property, and there were some issues with access on this side. But as part of that process, the eastern side of the property, he received a variance, as this is only 75 feet wide, or 70 feet wide here. Received a variance of 15 feet from the 85-foot requirement, and that was on May 21st, 2015. So because the variance is required, the variance still applies to the property. So it's in the R18 zone, and here's what's been proposed. So we have an extension of Golden Circle into a cul-de-sac here, which is shown on our local streets vicinity plan, which was adopted by the city. And then because these lots here on the west side, we don't have access from the west, they'll just be access from Golden Circle as well as lots 2 and 5, whereas lots 3 and 4 will be access from Locust Avenue with that variance I was talking about applying here to lot 3. So all the lots meet the minimum requirements with including the variance for lot 3 for the R18 zone. So based on that, staff recommends approval of the plat. So any questions about it? Move along.
Questions? Okay, I think so. Thanks. Is the applicant present? State your name and address, please.
Jason Roundy, I live on 770 Orchard Drive. Again, we were here last year. This is our, I think, a better solution for everybody. So we're just bringing the cul-de-sac in, and it'll create a really nice little cul-de-sac community here. If you have any questions for me?
Any questions for the applicant at all? I don't think we have any questions for you, thanks. All right, we'll open it up for any public comment this time. Anybody? Okay, close the public portion of this hearing, and we're flying through this, aren't we? Any discussion up here, Mr. Commission?
Yeah. This looks good.
Okay. So, no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the planning commission approve the request of Jason Roundy for a 6-lot preliminary subdivision plat called Roundy Auto Plat A on property at approximately 560 to 576 South Locust Avenue in the R18 Single Family Residential Zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report and as modified by the conditions below. All final planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Seal. We have a motion by Commissioner Coons and a second by Commissioner Seal. All in favor?
Aye.
Looks like it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, those two were very quick. We'll see what item 3 has in store. We'll move to that now, which is a public hearing to consider a request by Kim Sprague for a 2-lot minor subdivision called Monson Acres Plat B, consisting of approximately 0.67 acres on property located at approximately 190 North, 850 East in the R19 Single Family Residential Zone. I'll turn the time over to Rose.
Alright, so, this is in addition to a subdivision plat that was approved last year. So, plat kind of surrounds this property. But we have a long, deep property that was created as a result of the plat. So there wasn't access to the west of this property, the only access being a street that doesn't quite exist yet. Well, it exists now, it doesn't exist that picture, sorry. We have this 950 East, I believe it is, that comes in, and there's a cul-de-sac bulb up here. So this property is just over a half an acre. So what our code requires is if you want to do a two-family dwelling, which could be a twin home or a duplex, you have to have at least twice the minimum lot size. So where this is in the R19 zone, you need to have at least 18,000 square feet. So it's over half an acre, so it's got considerably more than that. So the applicant has requested to do a twin home. So when we discussed this, we discussed this last month with the applicant. We were looking at different options. So at that time, my understanding of the recently changed twin home code was that we were allowing for individual ownership, and that the lot line dividing this large lot here, this lot line, was not necessarily inherent to having a buildable lot per se on both of them, for what our code requires. So we discussed that with the applicant. This was submitted, and then a couple of days ago we ran into some snags with looking at the way the code is written. So if you'll turn to page 3, just after the that's all the preliminary plat stuff. So this is the section that we've discussed, page 9. So it says, twin homes shall be allowed as conditional uses in residential zones as long as the lot size, setbacks, and frontage requirements for each unit have been satisfied. So that was what was brought up to me, saying, well, lot 2 here is landlocked and therefore doesn't meet the minimum frontage requirements for a buildable lot. So my understanding from reading this was that we're talking about each unit meeting the individual standards for frontage, lot size, and so on. So when we discussed this with the applicant, we were looking at, or at least I was looking at the lot line as being a technicality between the two that would divide the twin home that would go on that lot line, because we needed to get we needed to get individual ownership of each side. So what the code allows for is it allows us to be able to split into 2 lots like this, or a townhome plat, which would basically create a lot line around the building pad, and then divide the two units, and then create a common area around that. So discussion with David Lewis, our engineer, he said that would work on this property because that would allow for common access. But he's concerned about this access here because the lot 2 does not own this access. Of course, I would say that access could be designated as common area. But again, it's a little bit complicated because there's a few ways that this could go. I mean, this lot could be, you could take lot 2 and bring the lot line down here, but then you end up with a flag lot. Flag lot wouldn't be permitted on this property because the subdivision was just created. So basically, the intent of the code was to allow for, or what the intent of the code, to my understanding, when it was passed, the new twin home code that we did a couple months ago, was to allow people to be able to divide their property to get individual ownership, and that we weren't so much worried about what those individual lots looked like on the property here. We were more worried about the overall lot size. So, not to complicate things further, I guess, but we could be looking at potentially modifying the code a little bit to clarify it, to make it so that something like this would work, or if we don't want something like this, something else would work. As I mentioned, like the townhouse plat here would work. Also, just doing single ownership and just doing a duplex would work here as well. But like I said, in discussion with the applicant, we did say this will work for you. So anyway, so they can kind of present their point of view on that and the situation. the story, I guess, as things have moved along, but, so the planning commission has some options. Should you choose to approve it the way that it's shown here, we would recommend that it be approved conditionally on a conditional use permit being obtained for a twin home, because that is a requirement. If you want to do a two-family dwelling, you have to have a conditional use permit in the R1 zones. So, if we continue it, we would continue it so that we would have some staff discussion. I know that's what Dagan has wanted. I feel like that would be a good thing. More time is always helpful, but the applicant also is on a time crunch and wants to be able to move things forward. They can speak to that. And of course, I mean, you could always, deny it, but again, we want to look at it and say, does it not meet code? And that's why we're denying it. So yeah, as I mentioned, I feel like this was the intent of the code to allow for this type of situation. Could be there are some slight modifications that need to happen with the access. Maybe CCNRs would take care of that kind of thing. But we wanted to be able to allow for individual ownership. So you could recommend that they change the plat to a townhome style plat, and that's a possibility. Or again, like I said, you could always approve the plat the way that it's shown here. Of course, if you do approve it, make sure that we approve it conditionally on receiving a conditional use permit. So I don't want to give like a million options, and
So Royce, can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah.
Is that all right, Mr. Chair? From what I'm seeing, okay, so if you can't really have an easement, because that's really kind of a flag lot, really. Okay, so you can't kind of treat an easement back to the back property. And so if you're saying it's a twin home, then you got two separate lots, and it doesn't quite meet the setbacks because of the, down the middle there.
well, the frontage requirements.
In the frontage. And so probably that sounds like the best solution is the townhome approach, where you have a common area all the way around and treat it as such that way. But then you gotta establish a mini HOA, I guess, for maintenance of the common ground, common areas and things like that. Am I correct?
Yeah.
That's right.
So, I mean, if you did have a common access, like is shown there, you would have to designate that in some sort of CCNR anyway. So, at least that's my understanding of the situation. I guess David can clarify that if he wants to. But
Well, they're showing it as an easement, so
yeah.
I think you could clarify in the easement language that the user of the easement was responsible for the maintenance of it.
Okay.
You could do it either way.
So maybe CCNRs then would be inherently required for this type of setup, whether it would be required for a townhome style plat. So I guess that would kind of be one of the big differences. So with CCNRs, if you did a townhome style plat, you do have to say, we do have landscaping and hard surface and so on, and this is who will maintain that, and this is how it will be maintained, and then, setting up a budget for that type of thing. So it's a little more complicated, I guess.
So you're saying an easement would work
For the driveway,
for the driveway?
yeah.
Which is still the problem with the.
In the
with frontage.
townhome scenario.
No.
In a-
In a
okay.
twin.
In a townhome scenario, you would define the building
I was
footprint,
gonna say, okay,
and then everything outside of that footprint would be common area.
right. I'm with you.
So twin
Yeah.
home would be the
Or-
cleanest option,
Twin home would be the cleanest,
but would be the cleanest for the owner.
but then we've got code issues.
Right.
Anyways, we'll bring it back up after that. So, any other questions for Royce? All right.
Okay, thanks.
The applicant will come forward, please.
It's right, 190 north, 850 east. This is the second phase of our first subdivision. So we've got a cul-de-sac up there, and Rich and I plan on owning these and not selling these. So, so that makes it a little different as far as pretty easy to.
That's Rich?
Rich and I own that property, yeah.
He was talking about you.
Yeah.
Your Christmas present, you didn't.
My mom used to call my dad Rich, so.
So, when we first did this subdivision, the easiest thing for us would have been just to get a flag lot off of this subdivision and have two lots there. And the code didn't allow that with creating a subdivision and creating a flag lot off of a new subdivision. So I've worked with Lehigh City, and Lehigh City lets you put in your subdivision and then go back and put in a new request for a new subdivision and give you a flag lot on your second time. And that was never an option here. The option was always just do a twin home. So that's where we started. So that's what the purpose of this was, is to, let's get a twin home on this one lot. So our goal is to own this twin home and have two tax ID numbers. And we probably would not prefer to have an HOA and separate the land, and we would like to each own one half. We don't care where the line is, and we can do an easement between us as far as the road, and we do not want to put a twin home that looks like a duplex with two garages face to face. So the idea is to put a nice twin home that doesn't look like a twin home there, with garages, different angles. Does that make sense? So.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
I just want clarification. You literally want to have it split where it's two ownerships?
Two tax ID numbers. A twin home that has two owners, two tax ID numbers, just like any twin home.
Considering we just saw and changed the ordinance regarding twin homes, I know it's tough to plan for something that just got changed, probably while it was something that you were working on, but what's the aversion to, I mean, because this is what we had in mind when we were working on this and developed the idea that you could do it as kind of with a little homeowners association. I think your homeowners association paper would be like one page in a situation like this that just says, okay, this is a common area, we both have to take care of that kind of thing. What's the aversion to that? Because that meets all our codes as far as like frontage and stuff goes, takes care of it.
Well, I think, this is just my opinion, I just think it's a little cleaner to have your own ownership of your own property and not have to have that as a common area, and that it's being managed by everybody. I don't know, it's being managed by somebody else, or who's responsible. If Rich and I have it designated that I'm responsible for this piece of ground, you're responsible for that piece of ground, and
I think you could, I think you can handle it that way,
You can have a,
yeah. So, it's just the way the ownership works so that it meets the rest of the code.
All right, any other questions for the applicant right now? Okay, we may have your.
are you,
There you
I
go,
have a question, are you opposed to that? I know it's not preferred, but I think you can make it. I mean, if you have a twin home, you're gonna have some agreements with that road anyway, you know, and I guess in your system, I'm sorry.
There's just gonna be an easement there, if you're gonna have garages that aren't, you're gonna have one garage there coming in from the cul-de-sac and another garage facing south or facing the bottom there, then you're gonna have to have an easement. You see what I'm saying?
I don't know where your garages are. If you have a pointer up there, you can then show us
You
where
have
the
a
garages
you have a pointer?
One would
Right
be
there.
on this
Garage
front
right
edge,
here at the
and
top
one
of
on
the
this
garage,
front
yeah.
edge.
Mhm. Otherwise, how do you make a twin
It's a
home?
merchant garage on the
Do it
front
again, over here,
lot, right there.
Yeah,
and over here somewhere.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's not a lot of frontage there on that corner to try and do two garages there. And the city doesn't want us to build a twin home that looks like a duplex.
We don't.
So, to make that look like a home, like a single-family home, we can do that if we put the garages different angles. Does that make sense? So,
Does that answer your question, Scott?
I guess, yes, it answers my question where the garages are, but I guess it's you still gotta have, like, so which, you'd like a flag lot with a twin home, and you can just have this thing back in there, but that's not possible with the current code. So you have to have some kind of an easement, and your CCNRs would be kind of serving as that easement. You say you plan to hang on to them, but, you know, no one hangs on the property forever, usually. You know, so circumstances happen where one may have to sell over the other, at least you got the agreement still intact as to who's responsible to which. I think it makes it cleaner. It's probably, I think you're accomplishing the same thing. You're gonna, you know, you can, even though you have some common area, you can spell out who's responsible for that common area. And you can treat it the same as.
You can fence it, whatever you
Yeah,
want.
you could fence it, and, you know, there's lots of HOAs, you know, townhomes, you know, out there who have fences. They have gates for the people to do their maintenance through, they can get through the gates. You know, you don't necessarily need that, but, you know, I mean, I think with the 2 units, it's much easier to set those rules than if you're dealing with 40 units or 50 units. I think you can accomplish the same thing.
Maybe we can, you know, we haven't really looked into what it would take to set up the CCNR and to do that. And a lot of that is because we came in December and met with Royce and sat down with, you know, and this was not our plan. This was, we were told, we'll approve this and go pay the money to have this engineered. That's what we did. So this is where we're at.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. What is your timeline for this? Because he said there was a time crunch.
Well, it's just, you know, we wanna get started building, and they, I mean, at that time, they said, you could start building now, but, you know, it's not approved. So we didn't wanna do that. We didn't wanna start building until we have something approved. So, we just wanna get started building this spring.
Any other questions for the applicant? We may have you come back up, and did you, I guess you're a co-applicant, did you want to say something there?
And address myself.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you need to stand up and state your name, and we know you're rich, but we don't know anything else.
Rich Warburton, 1025 East, Pleasant Grove, Pleasant Grove. I guess what I'm trying to say, I guess kind of what we're trying to say is, maybe you tell us the best way, because as of 2 days ago, it was fine and we are rolling. You know, it just came, and I totally understand, you know, things happen and maybe things are, you know, need to be in check. That's why we're here, and I'm okay with that. So, you know, the best solution, the easiest solution, nobody wants to do an HOA if at all possible. If it's some CCNRs, it's something simple, and I totally understand, that wasn't brought up when we came up yesterday of what problem, but I can look at it, and common sense tells me that that driveway that's shared, if it is to go down the side, and this isn't totally concrete as far as, you know, the garages we wanna have offset, but is it gonna come in from that cul-de-sac that was pointed, or is it gonna come down in that way? It's not concrete yet, we're still designing to see the best. Don't wanna have a look of, like Kim says, of your normal duplex that looks like it's mirror image on both sides. It'd be nicer if it fits what we're trying to do with the rest of the cul-de-sac and trying to make it a little bit nicer looking site. So I guess my question to you guys is, you know, maybe give us a little guidance, because we thought we were fine until yesterday, so.
Appreciate that. What we'll do is, we're gonna open it up now for any public comments, and then after that, we'll come up here and we'll have some discussion. We could probably work through a few options, and then we'll go from there. So let's open it up to the public. Anybody here from the public that would like to speak? Nobody? Okay. We will close that portion then, and we'll bring it up here. I think we'd all like to, at least me personally, I'd like to hear what Dagan's take is on this, because I knew that he had some inside input and so.
So to me, I think one of the big challenges here is that we're dealing with the plat to divide ownership before we've got a building. So the other case that I'm aware of where we dealt with this, I think the building came forward simultaneously, and you knew where that common wall was gonna be. And that's one thing that you'll have CCNRs for at a minimum, is that you're gonna have a wall. This is a twin home. It is, by the code, it's to look like one home. What they wanna do is what the code intends to be done. When you drive into the cul-de-sac, you shouldn't look at that and think duplex. You should just think it's another one of the homes here, and, you know, kind of later you'd find out, oh, there's another dwelling in the back. And so I think if that was done and we had the conditional use permit done with that, then we'd have an idea of where we were headed with the building, and then maybe laying that out would make more sense. As when this came in, first thing I thought was, well, this isn't quite what I had in mind in dividing it, was this type of a lot where you're creating this lot in the back with no frontage. Now, as I said before in the pre-meeting, this really is, it's a planning issue. I'm just looking at it saying, I'm a little confused as how this works. I would expect a lot like this would have done the other platting option, which is to have the common space footprint, because there isn't a way to really make it work and divide it. If you had frontage along a street, then you could divide it, and we'd have two separate lots, and you could have two separate buildings. But I think the big problem here is starting with dividing it before we really know what's proposed for a house. I understand, and I like the idea of having some buildable footprint that's larger than the house, rather than the traditional townhome, which is a very specific, this is the footprint, and we go up 2 or 3 levels, and that can never change. It makes sense, again, if this is gonna be in a regular, single-family neighborhood, if you can provide for those owners to say, yeah, we wanna bump out a wall here, or we're gonna add a covered patio, or whatever, define that footprint as large as possible. And we have a number of comments that we've put together. Like I said, we just haven't had a chance to talk with Ken and Royce about it, so.
So your biggest thing is having the plan for the house and the lot at the same time to discuss the whole thing.
Which is what will be required with their conditional use permit, which they will need to still come forward with for approval. That will show the placement of the house. So right now, they're forcing the placement of the house shared wall to be on the line that they're showing. And if they're okay with that, then I think we're okay with that. We'll get more definition when the conditional use permit comes forward.
Is there something of the code that we need to readdress? I mean, since this is coming up and it's what they're asking for, is it something that we, didn't think about, that we should consider to add?
Possibly. We'll discuss with Dagan and determine if there's any issues that we might need to tweak the code.
I thought this was exactly the reason that we developed the idea that you could do a townhouse style, was for this very situation. The problem that we have here, where I don't think it's really fair to these guys, is that they were already in process when we were working on the new code. And so that's the only difference. I think I think the reason that we said you can either do it one way or the other is so that you have the flexibility when you run into this type of a situation, is it not?
Well, what they're saying is when it was presented to us, and the permit presented to us, they didn't even take this situation in consideration. And that's where I'm saying, if this was never even considered, should we now go back and address that in our code, because it was something that just wasn't foreseen when they brought the code to us.
And in my mind, that's why, because we had the option to go one way or the other, just not to do the townhouse style, and I said, no, let's do both, this is one.
No, I'm fine with that, it's just, now if there's another option that we should now consider.
I can see that, I just don't want, I don't want to make these guys have to wait around as we go.
No, I understand that, that's
why
why I was just asking if this is something that we should go back and review the code and see. If
I believe there's enough leeway in the code right now to allow for this. I think we just need to maybe clarify some verbiage in regards to the use of an easement for a back lot or something like that. But I think we're okay moving forward.
Mr. Chair.
As long as it's with the conditional use?
Yes, with the conditional use.
So, timing-wise, for staff, you meet again in 2 weeks, is that, so a lot of that could be resolved by then, is that what you're saying, or?
Do we have the application for the conditional use permit? in?
Yeah, so the conditional use permit's coming on the next planning commission meeting. Yeah, as far as discussion, I'm sure we can discuss it in that time period, in 2 weeks.
Can we do both
And
simultaneously?
can we stack, can we
I don't
address
know.
all of it at once?
It would make sense to me to do the CUP and then do the plat right afterwards, so.
So if we continued it for review, and then it would come back and we'd take care of the whole project
That
at
way in
once.
2 weeks they can move on, they know where they
Mhm.
stand.
So they're coming back in 2 weeks anyways, or they would.
If we have, to
If-
make-
if
if we,
we-
if they have,
if we-
if they have to have conditional use, they have to.
Yeah.
Normally, this would come forward together, so I'm not sure why it came the way it did,
Separate.
but.
Because I'm nervous because we ran into something we didn't expect.
So you guys, Scott, you leaning towards
I'll make a
continuing
motion.
to consolidate?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to.
Any other discussion down here before we make a motion? Good. Before you make that, let's just, if you wanna stand up one more time, Rich. Sorry, we have to get it recorded, so
Sure,
when you're
sure.
over there, we don't
No,
know
you're
who's
okay.
speaking. Just state your name one more time.
1095 East. Do you think it'd be easier, you know, that lot line just came about from a discussion with Royce and Ken. And if it was changed to where that roadway was part of that lot line for that back lot, does that solve it?
I don't know that that's particularly my concern. I have a number of issues that I think I need to discuss with them. To me, the other homes that we have like this don't have, I mean, I said a townhome, it's a perfect line. The one down the street on Fifth South, I'm sorry, not down the street here, I'm thinking of a different twin home, but there's one down on Fifth South at about 350 East. And that line runs between, but it kind of zigs and zags because the home isn't split by a perfect straight line. So that's part of, you know, I'm looking at it going, okay, we're starting with this and then you're gonna build a home around this line, rather than saying this is the twin home and then let's divide this in a way that makes sense for the building that we're proposing.
Jennifer, before you make your motion,
Yes.
would you mind explaining a little bit about what at least your motion entails? Before you make it, just, because they did ask for a little direction and explaining that there's kind of a two-step process and you're planning on
Yeah.
consolidating.
Okay, so the reason I'm gonna make a motion to continue is, regardless if we approve it or not, you're gonna have to come back in 2 weeks. And, because if we approve it, it has to have a conditional use attached, and that, because you have to have a conditional use attached, you have to come back to us. So instead of, approving it now, we're gonna continue it to allow the staff to do their reviews and give you a chance to sit down with the staff again if you choose to work things out in the next 2 weeks, because you're gonna have to come back anyways. And then we're just gonna stack you'll be multiple items on the agenda, so we will address everything all at once. And that way, if there's an approval, you'll get the complete approval all in one night. Is that okay with you guys? Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so, Mr. Chair,
It has to go to city council.
well, yeah, but I mean, they'll be done with us. I move that the planning commission continue the review of Kim Sprague's for the 2-lot preliminary twin home subdivision plat called Monson Acres Plat B on property at approximately 190 North, 850 East in the R19 single family resident zone until 2 weeks, based on our next meeting. Doesn't matter.
January 21st.
January 21st, okay.
Or January 28th, sorry.
28th, okay, for until January 28th, to allow the staff more time to review this project.
Okay. There's a motion by Commissioner Baptista to continue and a second by Commissioner Richards. All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll continue it to next and hopefully we kind of take care of both steps same time if it works out.
And that'll help you guys work, talk to them of your options too.
All right, well that concludes our items for tonight.
Mr. Chair,
And then, yeah.
Ken, are we gonna do we need to do something about the possibility of whether or not we need to review the codes, or are we gonna address that?
We'll talk about that.
We'll let you know if we feel a need.
Okay,
So, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from December 10th?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from December 10th, 2015 planning commission meeting.
I'll second.
That was a tie, I don't even know which way to go.
Yeah, I don't care.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Richards to approve the minutes of December 10th, 2015, and a second by Commissioner Armstrong. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to conclude our meeting.
I'll second that one.
Motion by Commissioner Richards to adjourn.
She wants to say something.
Well, I don't wanna say anything, I just wanted to ask something. I was under the impression that there was gonna be a meeting tonight to discuss what was gonna happen with the accessory apartments. Has that been approved?
That's the city council,
That's
it's
the
not
city
yet.
council.
We've,
I was told to
it's,
come
yeah,
here
it's
tonight.
past
I was
us.
wondering why it was so empty.
Yeah, it's past us. It actually happened, they had a discussion during the work session this last Tuesday.
Okay.
It will be coming in front of them again, probably short, in the next.
February the 2nd, it will
Yeah.
come to city
Yeah.
council
February
and
2nd, so
Yeah,
I
but
should
that-
be-
That's-
should I be?
It's
That's
still,
the next
yeah,
public
it's,
meeting.
yeah, that's the next
at
public
6
meeting.
o'clock is when the meeting starts.
6 p.m. February 2nd.
Yeah.
And then, okay, and then another quick question. So, my daughter just bought a house and it's too big for her, so she's got all these, I'm just gonna ask, may as well. She's got all these extra rooms and she's thinking maybe she can get a few roommates and rent out some of the rooms. Is that allowed in Pleasant Grove?
Sort of.
Yeah, so she could do up to, if she's just living there by herself, she could have up to 3 other people with her.
Okay.
So that's
And then, and then she's, what if she has,
400
it's she and her husband, so
Oh,
if they're married.
So 2 other people.
Okay.
There can be up to 4 related or unrelated people that make up a family unit together in a house.
Oh, okay, so they can have.
Two others.
Perfect, okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thanks. I'll second.
My motion still stands.
There's a motion on the floor.
You're not rescinding your motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Richards